Welcome everybody to the MiniMapCast. This is MiniMap.com.au's weekly games podcast, your favorite weekly games podcast. My name is Kerry Palmer, and joining me, as always, is Jeremy Bratatich.
Hello.
What's the flavor of the week, Jeremy?
We're almost. No, we are. I think exactly a quarter of. Wait, what percentage of the year we're in now? We're in like 20% or something. Like something like.
It's been 1/6.
1/6. Right. What's that? Like 18%?
Like 18.678 or 18.666666 recurring.
That's hell.
Yeah. It's March in 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're not listening to this live or on Patreon, it definitely is March.
Yes. Yeah. It is definitely March by anybody listening to this after the Patreon early access. Which you should definitely do to hear it in February.
Because like otherwise you've got no other option. It's gone.
It's true.
There's no other chance to hear it in February.
It's so true.
Jeremy, I just need to quickly vamp for a small second, just because classic me.
What have you done?
I've realized that I haven't brought up the intro to the show, but
it's in every page. Every.
Well, no, it's not updated in every page yet, is it?
No, it is now.
Is it? It's the new one?
Yeah.
I don't think this is the new one.
It is the new one.
Are you sure?
I'm 100% sure.
Oh. All right. Well, that's great.
From now on, Kerry, you will only see the current intro.
Oh, great. Well, we don't have to worry about anything then.
No.
And I don't even have to edit it like I did live on the show last week. That's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's been a weird week.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It's like because it's the time of the year that we're starting to get information about E3 / information that we're not going to get anything at E3.
Yes,
and we're getting like quarter one announcements. For which you usually set up like quarter 3 of the year, but we're not getting any of those. We're getting like setups to like halfway into quarter 2.
Yeah.
And we don't have almost anything about quarter 3. There's, Sony, who we'll talk about in a moment, just released some hardware like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And like we are on the cusp of, we're looking to the end of the Nintendo Switch. It's such a weird time because everything sort of feels like it's trying to find its feet, aside from Nintendo, which we're desperately looking for a new pair of shoes.
Yes, exactly. But they're happy to run in them for a bit longer.
Yeah, they are, holes and all.
Yeah.
It is really weird.
I think we're finally, and as Jeremy just said, we're about to talk many things PlayStation.
Yeah.
And this will come up then, but I think we're finally seeing the cascaded effect of COVID 2 or 3 years down the line, like come to fruition.
What if we called this episode Operation PlayStation? Just as like a
oh man, shot across the bow. Goodness me. That's some SEO for you.
I don't mean to kick a man while he's down, aside from when he deserves it. So like Anyway.
Hey everyone, this is the MiniMapCast. I have no idea what to do with that, so I'm just gonna keep going with the intro. Hey, this is the MiniMapCast. This is MiniMap.com.au's podcast we do every week about games. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about PlayStation, like we've been talking about Nintendo and Xbox. Jeremy's gonna keep having his moment over there. He's having a time.
I am.
If you weren't aware, the MiniMapCast goes live every Wednesday on all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. You also get 24 hours of early access to if you're one of our patrons over on Patreon. So more on that in a little bit. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you tell your friends. Is that really part of the new script?
It is, because it says 6:30 p.m. on it, so like it's definitely the new script.
Oh, Jeremy, I just don't know.
All right, you keep going, and I'll look at the old one.
Yeah, if you cross-reference that,
sure
I
thing.
think so. I'll just read this one anyway, because here we are.
Yeah.
Make sure to tell your friends. Make sure, because I think what we normally say is make sure to give a show a positive rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. It makes a huge difference, and it only takes a few seconds. Yeah, no, it's
Oh
strange.
no, it's definitely different. I don't know what script this is.
I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, I knew it because it wasn't the same last week.
There you
All right.
go. My apologies.
We're starting over. Maybe not fully over.
No.
So what was it? MiniMapCast goes live every Wednesday with 24 hours of early access given to all of our wonderful patrons.
Yeah, just go from there.
More on that later. If you like what you're hearing, make sure to tell your friends. Oh, that's what it says. Make sure to tell your friends and give the show a positive rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. It makes a huge difference and it only takes a few seconds. If you want to get notified every time a new episode is released, you can make sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. That is at MiniMapAU on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and also Twitch, where we are currently live Monday night, every Monday night at 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time for the live recording of the MiniMapCast. You can also get live notifications on Discord if you join our Discord server. Link to that is on the website at the very top with the Discord logo or at the very bottom with the Discord logo. We always hang out with chat on Twitch while we record the show before we start recording and in the break and after the live recording. It's a great time. We'd love to see you there. We wanted to say thank you to Shook for letting us use the Moog Model D Improv as the music for the MiniMapCast. You can listen to more of Shook's music at shook.bandcamp.com. And finally, MiniMap is completely independent and funded almost entirely out of our own pockets. So if you want to help keep the lights and mics on, you can go over to patreon.com/minimapau and consider funding us. For only $5 a month, you get 24 hours of early access for all episodes of the MiniMapCast. We've got some extra bonus ideas in the wings that we're going to spin up at some point, and more. So head on over to patreon.com/minimapau. And remember, the $5 a month fee is cheaper than a latte with oat milk.
Seamless.
Hope you liked that 1.5 intros, everybody. We're going to get into the meat of the show, though. It's as we've been doing on and off for basically since this time last month when Xbox did their developer direct. We're kind of doing a state of X console publisher and developer. So we did Xbox in January, we did Nintendo 2 weeks ago, and this week we are doing Sony after last week's state of play in February.
It's nice.
February.
It's nice of them to all put out a little showing. About,
a little update
about like 2 weeks apart from each other, because that gave us enough time to really think about it and then actually do like a show on each of them. I appreciate you, big AAA game developers, for doing that for us.
Console manufacturers,
for us specifically.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for. That's an old.
Yeah.
When does he say that? When does Mario say that?
The end of 64, isn't it? Thank you so much for playing my game. Yeah.
Thank you so much for playing my game.
Yeah, it was one of the
Not Mario teaches typing.
No, it was one of the 4 voice lines in that game.
Yeah, as in like spoken lines, right?
Yeah, voiced lines.
Yeah, but he's got more lines in that. Like,
you've got Crispon because that didn't come through at all.
I've got Crispon?
Or something like that. Like that was like just silent while your mouth moved, which was quite very funny.
I do have Crispon.
He's
got all these like,
yeah.
Oh, I got hit by lava. Yeah. And like Yahoo. And
state of play.
PlayStation. So sorry, it's been a weird week.
Yeah, everyone. I'm like a farmer pulling the oxen up the hill.
Yeah, you're like you've literally got the crook, but it's not like to pull me off stage on a you know, it's just to like literally use it for what they used it for, to like steer cattle.
Yes.
Anyway, PlayStation. This is
it's weird, right?
This was a really weird show, to the point where I actually need to look at the recap before I start this segment, because I can't tell you what happened. Yeah. I can't off the top of my head tell you what actually
it was. Yeah, it was
shown.
It was like 15 or 20 minutes or whatever of Suicide Squad. There was
at the end.
Yeah, there was some Street Fighter stuff. There was another Resident Evil trailer, RE4 remake trailer. And some VR games that got announced, and like, a couple of the like middle stuff, and like there was like there was some Destiny stuff. There was some...
like it's not long. Here, let me just quickly run through it. So this is I'm reading from IGN's article from Logan Plant, just a recap article. Rocksteady shares extended look at Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. We'll get to that in a minute. Capcom reveals 3 new Street Fighter 6 characters. Okay, cool. Street Fighter's still coming out at the same date. There's still more characters you recognize and ones that you don't.
That looks really
Baldur's
cool.
Gate.
Just real quick, that game looks really fucking sick.
Yeah, I mean, people are talking about it. It looks like Street Fighter, and the people who like Street Fighter are very excited for this Street Fighter.
Oh, but it looks like a good one. Like it looks like, when they,
Not Street Fighter 5.
Yeah, basically, right? It looks like one that even me, who is not really a huge fighting game person, could have like a really fun time in it. I played that at
You're
PAX,
a little more
but,
predisposed to that in recent years. Like when Mortal Kombat 11 came out, you bought it to give it a go and see how you felt about it. So
and like I played this at PAX and it was like fucking solid from what I played.
Yeah. So Baldur's Gate 3 got the PlayStation release date announcement. So we've known that game's been coming for ages. This is the PlayStation announcement. New Resident Evil 4. They're not calling it remake, but it is remake. So saw a new trailer for that. Some gameplay. Also confirms the return of Mercenaries mode, which was the a feature from the original game, the multiplayer mode, I think, wasn't it? Or was it like a horde mode?
It's like missions.
Right.
Yeah, it's like score attack.
Oh, okay. All right, that's fun. That's cool.
Yeah, like people really like that.
Oh yeah, they had that in. That's what they called it in 8 as well. That was the Mercenaries mode, where you could play as Heisenberg and Lady D.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Chris.
I didn't go in that. I think that was in the DLC.
Bungie reveals the Destiny 2 Lightfall launch trailer, which was spoiler-tastic. If you apparently like, it was just a full-on cinematic from like the opening of the game. It looks like it was very high quality, and it was showing stuff to the point where I was like, "Oh, I actually don't want to watch this. This just looks like the story of Lightfall." I'll see that later. Sony reveals 5 games heading to PSVR 2 this year. Let's see what they're called. There was called the Foglands. There was Green Hell. There was Synapse. There was Asimov, and no, Foundation. Based on the iconic Foundation series. No, that's just Synapse. Okay. And the last game was Before Your Eyes, which is that game where it tracks your blinking and then like the scene changes every time you blink. So that's cool. That's coming because that has actual eye tracking in the headset. Tetris Effect developers show Humanity, which looked really cool. Chia is launching onto PlayStation Plus when it launches in March. Goodbye Volcano High is coming. There was a Naruto Boruto game. There was a Airship Syndicate's Wayfinder thing, and like that's it.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, there's stuff there. But like, if it doesn't speak to you, like much of that doesn't for me. It was completely like so there's 15 minutes of Suicide Squad. Great to finally see that game. Although we were having a moment, Jeremy and I, when we were talking about it on Discord, and I was like, oh, it's good that we finally saw gameplay. And Jeremy was like, oh, it's been looking like this for ages. I was like, they haven't shown gameplay yet. And then you sent me a trailer from like September.
Yeah.
A gameplay trailer. And I just sent back, I have never seen this video before.
I think that game looks so fucking bad, dude.
I don't think it looks bad. I don't think it's going to be for everyone, but I don't think it's low quality.
I don't know who it's for.
Yeah.
And I think that also means it's kind of like, it just look like, why is every superhero game now like gear and numbers and live service? Like
what market analysis did both Square Enix / Marvel and DC / Warner Brothers see that had them both go down the same track, and that had Rocksteady doubled down on this game concept after watching Avengers fail 2.5 years ago? Like, they had time to do something else in between now and then, and they decided not to.
And it's like, this game is like always on DRM because it's a live service game, which means that the moment it is over and ceases operations, you will not be able to play this game. And Avengers the exact same thing will happen there unless they do some serious work, which doesn't look like they're going to do, because they're in the middle of being sent over to like another parent company or whatever, right?
Because they got sold.
Yeah, right. And so it's like what is the purpose of this? Why do they keep making this decision when have you ever played, Kerry, a live service game that you said to yourself, boy, am I glad this game is a live service game? What the fuck does it add? Does the bottom line for these games really not hit when it's not just a single player anymore?
Yeah. I don't know. Like the thing that it theoretically allows for is the like infinite monetization you get with a successful live service game, right? I mean, that's going to be a large part of what developers and publishers are striving for when they pitch and build and make a game like this.
Look,
but
you gotta
the
wonder.
problem is you still have to have players invested in the core gameplay to begin with. It has to be decent.
And you've got to wonder, right? Like, are they pitching a live service game? Or are they pitching a Suicide Squad game and then team being told, if you want to make this, you got to do X, you got to hit a certain number of criteria so we can make some money in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. We want gear so that we can keep releasing content with better gear. We want cosmetics so people can spend money in the store. We want battle passes because battle passes are in.
And beyond all of that, it's just so fucking shooty and so floaty and like slidey, and there's no weight.
So watching the gameplay trailer, I really enjoy the way it looks like the characters move. It looks like it'd be really fun to move around as these characters. But the gameplay doesn't look particularly fun. Primarily for me, the thing that makes it the least interesting is that every enemy is just a brainiac like thing. So you're just shooting different shaped purple monsters, and you have to shoot the biggest, glowingest, purplest bit on all of them.
How fucking boring.
It sounds very boring to me. And it looked it. The shooting did not look like fun at all.
No. I'm probably just not going to play it again. Like it's just another one of these games that is going to come out, and it's probably a shame because there's probably a lot of, Rocksteady have made some pretty fucking good games, and there's probably going to be a lot of that in there, that good Rocksteady stuff that is unfortunately going to be bogged behind some games as a service crap and some lackluster gameplay.
Yep.
The visuals look pretty good. There's some cool locations, it looked like.
Yeah, I liked the way the environment looked.
Yeah.
Like the kind of the palette, like the color palette and the tone of the world looked, I think, interesting.
The colors look nice. The characterization looks interesting enough for me.
It's better than Gotham Knights.
Yeah, and there's I would be interested enough with that story, except for I'm not interested enough because it's stuck behind games as a service crap and shithouse shooting. What are they doing anyway?
Yep. So. Yeah, it was to the point where there were two videos, right? There was like a 6-minute, full gameplay. Like, here's a section of a mission from halfway through the game. Enjoy. And you just cut between the different cameras over and over and you see some cutscenes. And then they did this whole developer breakdown thing. And I swear to God, they had 35 different staff members come and talk to the camera. And they cut to the next person and the next person. They were all describing different elements of the game in differently engaging ways. It was very cut up. It was very disjointed. And because of that, I completely forgot that I watched that second half of the show. I was trying to think about it going into this episode of this podcast, being like, wait, what happened in that second bit of the show? Did I even watch it? I couldn't remember it at all. And then I was watching it just before we started, and I was like, oh, I did see this bit. And I did find it completely disengaging.
I think I've forgotten as well. I actually don't remember a lot of that.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing where they're like, oh, it's always online. It requires a PlayStation Plus subscription service. It says it in the fine print. They show you the gear. They show you the cosmetics. It's like, oh, yeah, you could put a Superman outfit on King Shark and pajamas on Captain Boomerang.
Yeah.
Woo! It was not a great showing.
No. And like, look, not a great state of play. Like, we knew going into this that it was going to be a low key one. Like, we'd heard from around the traps that this was going to be kind of like not a big showcase, and it's not going to be big when the biggest thing you've got, the longest thing you've got is the Suicide Squad trailer, gameplay breakdown, everything.
Well, I mean, that could be a big deal. This game could be a big deal, but the way it's shaping up, it isn't.
Yeah, but like going into that, you knew that if this was going to be the big thing, then it wasn't going to be super interesting.
It was more like, for me, it was like, if Suicide Squad is going to be anything, it has to be something now. That was more like what it was for me.
Right.
Like they have to show their hand today.
But yeah, so you've got down here, where are they in terms of Sony, PlayStation?
So we saw, as we said, we did Xboxes, we did Nintendos, now we're doing PlayStation. And with all of those last two, we got a good look at what Xbox's first party offerings are looking like for the first half of the year, which is very good because they were pretty MIA last year. Like, about as MIA as they were the years before.
I would say more even last year.
Except for 2020.
Yeah.
And then Nintendo, we got a bit of an inkling with them in terms of, we've got Zelda to look forward to soon. Like, that's exciting. We had Metroid, we have Pikmin. Like, there's a bunch of stuff coming out of Nintendo. Going into this state of play, where they did the tweet and they were like, "Oh, we're showing off VR, some third-party titles, and Suicide Squad. Extended look at Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League." It's like, oh, okay, that's a weird thing. I wonder if they'll squeeze anything more in there, and they didn't have to. But what that meant was this was a very interesting third-party only state of play.
Yeah,
we didn't even get, like, last state of play. We got God of War Ragnarok story trailer and the announcement of the limited edition DualSense controller. Like, we didn't even get anything like that.
Yeah,
and so it leads me to ask the question: where is Sony? And the thing that has to be brought up is that this state of play was like the day or 1 or 2 days after PlayStation VR 2 launched. That's where their head is right now.
Yeah, their head is,
because they're launching a platform. They're launching hardware.
Yeah, like that. They have released a piece of hardware, which is weird to say, because the PS5 doesn't feel like it's been around for that long when it has. And like they've always said that they've designed this console with VR in mind, so that you understand that this was going to come earlier, like sooner rather than later. Basically, this headset was going to arrive.
This doesn't have anywhere near the kind of buzz or hype or anything behind it that the PS5 did before launch, though. So even if PlayStation is distracted by PSVR 2, like even if they've got their hands tied by it, it still doesn't feel like they're putting that much work into getting PSVR 2 into the public consciousness or into people's hands. You know what I mean? Like, it's been dead. There was review coverage the day it came out, and we've heard nothing.
Yeah, look, I think that it's too expensive. It's not for the general consumer, right? I think maybe they're looking at VR as this is going to be a headset we can try and market to enthusiasts. Maybe an enthusiast that hasn't upgraded their video card in 4 or 5 years because they've been too expensive. But did pick up a PlayStation 5. Maybe that's the market that they're looking at. But like it's still not a huge push, right? And I think if they had maybe said like, hey, here's a, and like they might not be ready. Like from my understanding is that they said they spoke. This is coming from Jeff Grubb, I believe. They said that they were talking to their first party, and a lot of them just weren't ready to show anything yet.
Okay.
And so you can't like force them to do something.
No.
But that they wanted to maybe have a showing earlier in the year, and maybe that was going to initially push some of their VR titles in front of some more general audience, but it just didn't work out that way. Because
Yeah.
okay, so you got to think, for example, right? What would be the two things that they would be most likely to show from their first party? It would be Spider-Man, which is supposed to come out this year, and it is the Last of Us multiplayer.
Factions.
Yeah, which we don't know when that's coming out, but you would think that they would maybe want to try and show that while the show is going on, but it doesn't look like that's going to work out that way. So I think they were just kind of dealt a bad hand in a way.
Yeah.
But also, it does lead you to believe, like, well, it does lead you to ask, what are they really doing? And that's kind of just like, they're just kind of waiting.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to wait.
And it's a good point. Like, what else can they do if it's not there?
Yeah.
Nearly every review I read was like, this hardware is actually really good. Like, it's a great VR headset. The controllers, the haptics in the headset, the comfort, the feel, the resolution of the displays, the eye tracking, it's apparently all really, really quite good. And so not unreasonable for what they're asking for it, for the quality of the headset that you're getting. But it's a brand new VR library. It's a brand new system. Because PlayStation 1's software wasn't compatible with like Oculus ports, no one who made PlayStation 1 VR games had it work for like Oculus kind of controllers, which is what the PSVR 2 is now. So their library is so hamstrung by what they weren't before. And there's no library to back it up to support the system right now.
And it's also it's worth mentioning here, Jeff Grubb did tweet on February 11th that there will be another state of play later this year before E3. But it's not going to be a state of play. It's going to be their like PlayStation showcase.
PlayStation showcase,
which is their big one. Those are their defining ones.
Those are their first party, like shows of force.
It's their E3 showing. Like that is what they used to. Those
or their console launch showing.
Yeah, which it's not going to be that yet, but yeah.
No, yeah, but like that's the extent to which it is important. Like, yeah.
Manifesting Blue Point Shadow Drop.
Of what? Of what? Just whatever they're working on.
Whatever they're working on.
How fascinating is it to be so in on a developer that it's like, I don't care what you're working on, I just want it.
Yeah, right. And look, it's like you got to earn that, and like they have, right? Like they have earned that
over the last 10 years. They really have.
Yeah.
So yeah, PlayStation's sitting and waiting. Like you said, we've got Factions and Spider-Man 2 in the wings, and those are the only things we know are coming soon. Everything else is hypothetical, basically, at this point. Like, Wolverine is not coming anytime soon. Spider-Man is coming before that. And we basically know nothing else about Sony's first-party offering past that. I am expecting, considering how quiet they've been for so long, like it was Horizon last year and God of War. And then we got Horizon and they didn't really talk about anything else. And then we got God of War and they still haven't really spoken about anything else. They are really waiting. They're really holding it. Like, they're not dribbling it out. They're not giving you the next 6 months, not giving you the next or 9 months or whatever. They are holding on until they've got like a glut. It really feels like they're trying to wait until they've got a whole package to get it out all at once and sort of regenerate that extra hype. Because the PS5 going into the life cycle of the console, it was huge amount of hype going into it. Because the PS4 was so successful, they didn't drop the ball. They had some cool stuff coming, and it carried the system through the stock shortages.
And I think also like showing whatever they're going to show later on in the year. Like, I think that they've got a good hand in all of their third-party relationships.
Definitely.
You know, like with Square Enix launching Final Fantasy 16 later in the year. They have a good relationship with Capcom and the Resident Evil franchise. So we'll see.
And Street Fighter.
Yeah, Street Fighter as well. Both of those coming out, I think maybe before or close to that thing. Whenever that showcase is going to be. But you know, you'll be able to see, if not a launch trailer, maybe a potential live ops after the fact, as well as like we might see like a Kingdom Hearts, or we might see like even some other game.
Square Enix.
Yeah, like some other Square Enix property right now that they're a little bit leaner.
Dragon Quest 12.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I just hadn't considered that. So yeah, like we've got in our doc. When do we see PlayStation Showcase more first party stuff? It'll be June. That'll roughly be when it happens. They're gonna
maybe May.
Yeah, like they'll go before E3 whenever that's supposed to happen. They won't be a part of E3. They'll be on the outskirts like they have been for the past few years. But you know, do we see factions then? Do we see a teaser factions when the show finishes? When are we going to start seeing that, do you reckon?
This feeling of them holding on to everything. We have to remember so episode 7 out of 9. 9 is all of the episodes we're getting for the Last of Us series. Episode 7 aired like 4 hours ago.
Yeah.
So that means we have 2 weeks until the show is done.
Yeah.
We're not seeing factions in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So this sensation, this feeling of this precipitation. No, but this sort of gut feeling of them holding on to what they've got, holding on to these announcements until they've got a lot of them at once. I reckon factions is a part of that, and it's going to be the tip of the spear. It's going to be, hey, Spider-Man's later in the year, factions is in a month.
I actually don't see factions coming earlier. I actually think what it'll be factions is taking longer than we expected. You're gonna get it next year, but for now, here's Last of Us Part 2 on PS5. And then that way they can launch factions as a part of that whole thing.
Okay, so maybe we'll just
that's
put a bracket around that. It's a Last of Us tip of the spear then.
Yeah. That's just my personal call of, I think that would be a way to do it. Like Last of Us Part 2 PS5/PC announcement, because the Last of Us Part 1 is coming to PC around then or something, isn't it? Like
coming out in a month.
Yeah, like in March.
Yeah, it was meant to be in like a week, but they pushed it.
Yeah, so I think that could be like a if they've pushed it, then maybe I can't see them launching another one, or maybe just an announcement. Who knows? Like there's room for both of those projects to be separate. So, and you know, we'll see the Horizon DLC, and we'll see.
Yeah, that's out in April.
And we'll see whatever fucking Sucker Punch is working on.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I don't think that Horizon DLC will hit April. I think it'll get pushed. Only because I feel like we should have seen it the other day if it's coming out in April.
I don't know. Maybe their state of play is in a month. Maybe their showcase is in a month.
Surely not.
No, I don't think so. I think that'd be too close to this one to make sense. So, but question for you. Let's dig a little deeper on this Last of Us tip of the spear.
Mm-hmm.
You think it's more likely that we'll get Last of Us Part 2 on PS5 / maybe PC release announcement?
I think we get that first. Maybe not PC, but at least PS5. I think we get Last of Us 2 on PS5 before we get factions.
See, I disagree, because right now there is I feel like we've had this conversation already, but let's do it again. Right now there is a very competent, and you know this, you've played it. I haven't played it yet. You have. There is a PS5 patch for The Last of Us Part 2 that gives it a 60 FPS mode. It gives it at 4K or checkerboard or whatever it was doing on the PS4 Pro, like in the way that they did it for God of War, where that ran just like amazingly on the PS5. What Digital Foundry calls back compat plus, where it's the PS4 game running with a bit more headroom and taking advantage of it. I don't think it makes much sense to charge more for The Last of Us Part 2, and maybe they'll do it anyway because they just did it for Part 1. But like, I don't think it makes much sense to charge for Part 2 and not bundle it in with factions, because The Last of Us Part 2 has been missing from their subscription service. It's been like conspicuously absent. So it has to be, if it's going, it's got to be there. They want it to be there. People are going to play Part 1. They want to funnel people into the rest of the franchise after the series, after playing Part 1. They want Part 2 to have some sort of current presence in their lineup. So if they are going to refresh, Part 2, the single player, for the PS5, I think it will come as an optional bundle with factions.
But okay, so factions is probably going to be free to play.
I doubt it. It's Naughty Dog working on this. I don't think they could. I don't think they'll.
But Naughty Dog were advertising, like when they were looking for jobs, they said the word free to play in some of their PDs.
Yeah, but maybe they just want free to play monetization inside of a premium game.
I think it's free to play, but it's you still need PlayStation Plus.
Oh yeah. But it's multiplayer.
Yeah, but like I think like and with the Ghost of Tsushima, they put out a PS4 to PS5 patch and still released a PS5 version of that game.
Yeah, the director's cut or whatever.
Yeah, like it's not an unheard of thing for them to do. And look, they could sell it again. Like it'll make them a fucking ton of money. But I do think that factions will come out free to play, and I think that they will sell a PS5 version of 2. But I think that for them to, I think that factions, we've only seen concept art of it. I don't think we're ready. I don't think that they're like they were out here talking about like how they kind of regretted announcing it so early, and that they didn't like only being able to show concept art. I think the fact that they've said that means that I don't think we're going to see it this year. I think they'll talk about it as a thing that's going to come as next year, but and they can say, for those Last of Us fans who enjoyed Part 1, Part 2 is now available available in a few months. It's out on PS5 for all you folks that have got a PS5.
I don't get it.
Do you get them re-releasing Last of Us Part 1 on the PS5?
No, but it worked for them. And so I can get the thing I don't get. How did we get to 2 months away from The Last of Us Part 2 in 2020 coming out? We were weeks away from that game releasing. And that was when they told us. That was when they decided that we weren't getting factions in as a part of that game. Up until like 2 months or less before that game came out.
It was on their roadmap.
We were expecting multiplayer. We were told that multiplayer was going to be a part of this release. And then it wasn't. It's been nearly 3 years. I'm not exaggerating. It came out halfway through 2020 and we're nearly in March 2023. It's been 3 years. And this mode that almost made it into the gold version of the game that came out 3 years ago still isn't here. Where is it?
Well, so I guess they had to take back over control of The Last of Us Part 1 remake. So that would have taken a bit of development time because they picked it up back from Bend or whatever. And like I'm pretty sure that they're working on something else at the same time. Like they've got more than
they're also overseeing the PC ports, like in like a consultancy role, and they managed the PS5 Uncharted port. Yeah.
Look, I think
still
the fact that they had to, what it feels like, pull the plug on that thing so late into development, I think shows that it wasn't working. Whatever it was going to be, it wasn't working. Or like, because initially we expected it just to be more Last of Us multiplayer and we had no reason to think otherwise. And then suddenly everyone started talking about it's a battle royale. Everyone started looking in the files and seeing stuff talking about different armor like sets and levels as if you're picking up loot, right? And stuff. And so suddenly I think that they realized either what they had didn't work or they wanted to make something better. And so I think it got like not 100% canned, but they made a decision to say, no, we don't want to release this. We want to release this idea instead.
So I looked it up just now just for the hard dates. It wasn't within a couple of months. I was very wrong. It was 9 months before the release of the game. It was September the previous year.
There we go. Still, like that's still part of an initial part of a roadmap, and then cancelled in the months leading up to, within a year of launch of the game.
It was sudden.
And I think they also said one of the biggest reasons they wanted to do that was because they wanted to focus all the efforts back into the single player to make sure that when it came out, it was the best of its ability, which makes sense.
Yeah, and it got delayed after they canceled the multiplayer.
Sure.
Like the single player got delayed after this.
Yeah, so like I think...
I'm guessing maybe this was a decision about make sure it comes out before the PS5. Like this has to come out 6 months before we can't push this too close to the PS5 launch because it will something.
Or maybe they decided, hey, we only want this to be on PS5. We like this actually we don't want this to be a PS4 game. We want this to be a PlayStation 5 game.
Right.
And
maybe they wanted to do more with it.
And like who knows why, but sometimes those decisions get made. And so I think that's why we're not going to see it yet, because I think that at the same time of them making this, like I played it. Like, I'll talk about it briefly later on in the show, but like,
yeah,
it looks incredible still.
Yeah.
And, I'm playing on the PS5, but there is a better version of that game that runs natively on the PS5. And I don't know if they
what do you mean there is?
Like, as in, like
you're hypothesizing that there is.
What I mean is that there are little things that you notice that are like, oh, this is a PS4 limitation.
Yes.
So, like, and you don't see a lot of them, but they are there occasionally. And so you sort of look like, ooh, like you could release a PS5 version of this game and it would be like practically flawless on a technical level.
Yeah.
Which I think will be arriving September 3rd.
Hang on, everybody. We made a little. Where was this?
It's in the Discord.
In the Discord.
No, sorry. Sorry, I changed that, but only slightly. September 26th.
September 26th. I'm trying to remember. In our Discord server, didn't we make a Pizza Bet channel or something like that?
No, just in the general chat, I believe. You
general chat.
Yeah,
all right.
There was a Pizza Bet somewhere for something.
All right, Jeremy.
The Last of Us Part 2 coming to PlayStation 5 September 26th.
Part 2 PS5.
Yep.
Coming September 26th. What day is that, Jeremy?
That is Outbreak Day.
Oh, yeah, it's Last of Us Day. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what day it is. Doesn't matter.
It's Sunday.
Classic launch.
Classic games industry launch.
I mean, hey, look, Halo released on 7/7/2007, so like, they can do that.
Yeah.
But that's also why it hasn't been put on the fucking collection yet.
Because they're going to do something with it.
Because they don't want the PS4 version. If it was just going to be a PS4 version and then decide it was going to be a PS4 version until the end of time, then they would have just put it up.
Oh, man,
they're selling it for so cheap. Why wouldn't you? And it's because they can make it a PS5 version and then put it on the higher tier. Later.
It's just if they were going to do that, I feel like they wouldn't have put Last of Us Remastered as part of the collection, but they did. The PS4 version is there.
I ain't got an answer for that.
I know. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's so fucked.
It doesn't make any sense to the point that we can't actually look at their subscription service and pull any useful information out of it.
No, you're right. We can't. Speaking of their subscription service, our final little update, our final little talking point for this little discussion.
No, it isn't.
It's.
That was the other talking point which you didn't write down.
What do you mean?
What is the goal of Sony and the PlayStation 5?
Oh, I didn't write that down. I thought you were writing that down. Our second last talking point.
Oh dear.
We're going to briefly touch on PlayStation Plus. So we've sort of been like, oh, where's their new titles? What are they doing? They're just doing VR. They're holding on to their first party. We're going to get a package of announcements down the line. But what does their subscription service look like right now? 8 to 10 months, depending on where you lived, after the launch of the service. How is it looking? And what does it mean for them going forward? I can't believe we've had this much to say about PlayStation, considering that they showed the least out of any of these groups. But yeah, what does PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Plus Plus and Plus Plus Plus, what do their 3 tiers of subscription services look like? There's been a bit of a recent development with this over the last just week. So they've announced the free games for PlayStation Plus Essential. You're getting Battlefield 2042 and some other stuff. But they've also announced some things coming to the game catalog. So as a part of PlayStation Plus, top title, and one that I think they're setting a precedent with, and that we'll talk about a bit here, is Horizon Forbidden West. February 2022's PS5 big exclusive game. It's coming to their service. It's not gonna just be a trial on the premium tier. It's gonna be a game you can download and play, and all you have to do is subscribe to Extra.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
It feels a little. It's still not Xbox day and date like parody.
No. It's
good that they're not waiting longer than a year to put this out.
I mean, they got some DLC coming out soon, so if they want anyone to buy the DLC, I think it's a good idea to put it on this service. But
sure.
You know, like it could have been.
It's kind of like could be better, could be worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the kind of thing people will be looking forward to November of this year and saying, I can't wait to play God of War Ragnarok. I couldn't afford it at the time, but I have Extra. I can't wait to play it when they release it, because it'll be 1 year since it came out, which is what they did with Horizon. It'll be interesting to see if they do that. If they then follow through with maybe Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection in a couple of months, when that's 12 months since it was released. They follow through with...
Sorry, is that still not on there?
No. I may. Yeah, no, it's not. It's just a trial.
Fuck, man. Trial, the remastered version of a game that no one asked for the remaster of.
Yeah, exactly.
Goodness gracious me.
So yeah, or if they do that with Last of Us Part 1. Oh yeah, you remember the big news was like, oh, good news for PlayStation Plus subscribers. There's now a Last of Us Part 1 trial. I remember they introduced that with the show.
Good news.
So yeah, that's very interesting. But it's not the only interesting thing announced for the subscription catalog update for this month. Other games that are coming out this month, we are getting The Quarry, Resident Evil 7, Outriders, Scarlet Nexus, Borderlands 3, Tekken 7, Ace Combat 7, Skies Unknown, Earth Defense Force 5, Naki, I don't know that one. Lost Sphere.
There's a handful of more games, which is like it's a decent showing. Like it's a decent addition.
The Forgotten City, which is great.
Yeah. They like it's good.
Yeah.
Did they consider maybe putting a bunch of VR games on there for a lot of their people who happen to just purchase their $850 fucking headset? You crooks. Like, what the fuck are they doing?
So the problem is, Jeremy, every PSVR 2 game that just came out had to have new development done on it. Because
it wasn't backwards compatible.
Because it wasn't backwards compatible. So no company can afford to do that.
I just don't fucking get it. It's like it reminds me of like there's like an army of managers. There's like an army of middle managers.
It reminds you of this, okay?
Yeah, and it's like that they all have their vision for what they want to do for their department. You know that scene in
There's a committee.
Yeah, you know that scene in Andor where the two members of the ISB are like trying to get in on each other's jurisdiction at the beginning of the scene. It's like that. It's like they want to like
the one tired, stuffy overlord.
Yeah, and that's Jim Ryan, and he's like going like, you know, what do we think the motto of PlayStation is?
And they think it's like Order Across the Galaxy, and he's like, wrong. Yeah. It's to make sure that the Emperor doesn't have a bad taste in his mouth.
Yeah. It's to make sure Kaz Hirai doesn't come back. Yeah, I don't understand why they wouldn't want to reward some people who just purchase their very expensive piece of hardware.
Yeah, if they could put Moss and Moss 2 on here, that would be awesome.
The Astrobot game. Like what are we doing?
Oh no, Jeremy, that's only on PSVR 1.
I know.
It is a good point though. They should have done a VR glut of this earlier than PSVR 2's launch and been like, hey, PSVR 1 owners, to get you excited, here's a bunch of other games to play on your PSVR 1.
Now, I'm no business expert. Let me show you my MBA I don't have. But wouldn't you want your highest paying customers to feel valued the moment they just dropped almost $1,000?
I'm sorry, what's that? Is that goodwill? Goodwill with the consumer? What's that? Sorry, I can't hear you. You're gonna have to speak up. I can't hear you over all of my money counting machines. What's that?
Good grief.
Yeah, it's a weird move. If you just own a PS5, this is a great month for the collection.
Sure.
It's the first time with the subscription we've gotten something that we get lots of times with Xbox Game Pass, where people look at the announcement and they're like, this is a good month.
Yeah.
And like, great. But like, it took them a while.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know what the subscription service looks like. Probably just a similar version of what it is going forward. But it bears worth it's worth mentioning what this month looks like.
And like, what are they really like? It still feels like that they don't really have a drive or purpose for their subscription service. It's
like they're just doing it to ape it.
Well, they're doing it because the other guys got one.
Yeah.
There's no reason aside from, well, they've got one, we should have one. There's still 3 price points.
Yeah.
I still don't know the name of them all.
Yep. Well, the problem is there's 4. That's why you don't. That's part of the reason why you don't know the name of them all, because there's 2 different names for the third one depending on which region you live in, whether you have game streaming or not.
Exactly. We still don't have game streaming here.
Yeah. Even although we had the like Xbox, the xCloud like preview streaming available.
And look, it's hard to compare Microsoft to Sony in that regard, right? Microsoft is a much larger company when it comes to a lot of that stuff, but like they bought like Gakai like almost 2 decades ago at this point. Like it's maybe a purchase that hasn't quite worked as well for them as they hoped. But like I can't even put a PS3 game on my console.
Yeah.
So the final topic being, what is the goal of the PlayStation 5?
Yeah.
What is
2 and a bit years in?
Like
where are they going?
What is their purpose, right? Like we're looking at the end of the Switch at the moment. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago about like, what is the Switch going to be remembered for? It's going to be remembered for them bringing the best of a lot of their previous hardware, and also them putting out some of the best games Nintendo has put out in a very long time has been on the Switch, old and new. Xbox, their consoles are a bit less important to their legacy in terms of their console's legacy has now sort of been cemented in their change of platforms and their acquisitions.
Yep.
You know,
and Game Pass.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like the platforms in terms of like the Xbox Series X is the best console you could buy for Xbox Game Pass, right? Like that is the purpose of that console. Couldn't tell you the last time I used the disk drive on my Xbox Series X.
Until today, I couldn't tell you the last time I used my Xbox Series X.
Yeah. Like, you know, like, and like I use my console a ton, but like aside from 4K Blu-rays, like I actually don't remember, like last time I tried to use my my disk drive on my Series X, I accidentally didn't have the disc in and launched Lego Star Wars via Game Pass anyway. And so like it was one of those things where I was like, I don't need that little piece of $100 equipment in there.
Yeah.
The PlayStation 5, what's it doing? What's its point?
Where's it heading?
Yeah. It being a PlayStation 4 but better maybe isn't really enough.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we've spoken on the show about how there's been a cyclical pattern with console manufacturers with public reception, where a lot of the times the top dog of a certain console generation will kind of shit the bed at the end of that generation or going into the next one, and they won't be at the top of they won't have the majority of the mind share of what that generation is all about going into the proceeding one.
There's a level of hubris that I think comes with being the best of the previous generation. Mm-hmm. There's a level of arrogance, I guess, that gets brought into the next one, which ends up putting people off, or they can make more cunning business decisions, which really pushes people away.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the people who screwed up the previous generation have to get a bit scrappy and foster a lot of goodwill to get back in people's good graces and to make up for a bad launch, like with the Xbox One.
Yeah.
PlayStation 4 was a phenomenal success for PlayStation
from day one.
And PlayStation 5 has continued their success.
Yeah.
It hasn't abated. And even through the sort of, dare I say it, unprecedented stock shortages that have been going right up until CES this year, January, when Jim Ryan finally said, hey, you can now finally start to get these whenever you want. Like, they had to announce that.
It's actually still not true.
It is a bit more true. It is more true.
Yeah, but like they're not living on the shelves. You can go out and buy one sometimes, but they don't live there.
Sure, but if I go to EB Games' website right now and type in PS5, there's two right there. I could just buy one. It's not pre-owned, it's just a brand new one. I can just buy it. Yeah. And that, we know from working there, was impossible for basically 2 years straight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a sort of thing where as an outsider to the industry, or as an enthusiast, I guess, how I would describe my position, I haven't really been able to. There's no pattern to look at here. They're breaking the pattern.
Oh, I mean, they're not breaking the pattern. Like they've done this before. Like the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2 is that.
That's true. 1 and 2 did very well, and then 3 was a lot of hubris, and no one bought the console.
Yeah. I think that. I think that there is like there has been a lot of shitting in their own bed like over the past couple of years, with just various decisions that they've had to either walk back or apologize but not apologize for, and change last minute because everyone's like, this is dumb, and they're like, okay. So like they're not foolproof in terms of, they're not bulletproof with their decision making right now. They still have to play the public PR game, and some of their decisions still reflect that. When talking about the legacy of a console, like it's hard when we're only 2 years in and the first peripheral has only really come out in regard of the PSVR 2, but I think that there is a level of I still don't really know the point of this console aside from it's just the more powerful one.
It's just the next one.
Yeah, and I think that
I kind of feel that way about the Series the Series X, at least. The Series S is pretty apparent what it needs to be. But.
Yeah, like in a way, yeah. Like I think that game delivers the best version of Game Pass that you could buy, which I think is enough to exist on its own. Yeah. Especially just like getting away from the baggage of the Xbox One was almost worth it enough to make another console. Yeah. Whereas like the PlayStation 5 has had this weird, like, a select 100 games of the PlayStation 4 is going to be on there. Actually, all of them, aside from a handful that we haven't tested, are going to be on there. And then like this weird, like it's come out and like, I think like I remember saying when the console came out, I don't think it's justified its existence yet. It's not super exciting as a console.
But it still has an incredible amount of demand. It is exciting to millions of consumers.
Sure. And like, look, and when enough games come out for it, that will probably end up justifying its own existence.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff
Sorry, I was interrupting you.
I was just going to say, like, a lot of stuff that they were talking up, it's not really that big a deal anymore, right? When they were talking about the ultra-fast hard drives that were, like, cutting edge, like it's on par with the Xbox's hard drives, right? And
well, yes, but more than that, almost all of their games have been hamstrung by being PS4 compatible games. Yeah. Like God of War came out on PS4 and so did Horizon.
And that's not necessarily their fault in terms of they didn't foresee a sudden pandemic causing extreme productivity and part shortages around the world, to the point that they started remaking PlayStation 4s again because they just couldn't make PlayStation 5s.
Yeah. And the PlayStation 4 has 115 million install base or something like that. Like they want to sell to those consumers for as long as they can.
Of course. But like, I still don't really know what they want that console to be remembered by. Right? Like and like part of it also I think is through the past, a lot of the PlayStation's big selling points has honestly been it's also a media device. And that's not to say that like that they needed to do this again, but the PlayStation 1 was also a CD player, the PlayStation 2 was also a DVD player, the PlayStation 3 was also a Blu-ray player.
But that didn't help it when it came out.
Look, the PS3 no, but the PS2 yes.
Yes, PS2 definitely.
And like the PS3 is kind of an outlier in this regard. The PlayStation 4 still did a lot of its media stuff, less than the PS3, but it was just like a rock solid, like this is the game console.
Yeah. And you can have your streaming stuff if you want.
Whereas I don't know if that's enough for the PS5 for me to feel like it's like the one that's exciting.
No, I don't think they can. For the PS2, it was definitely a massive driver in the PS2 success, because not only was it a games console that also did DVDs, it was also just like a cheap DVD player. There were many more DVD players that were more expensive than the PS2 and did less than it. That was why the PS2 did so well, because it was so fully featured.
Yeah.
Like if you wanted the DVD player, you got a console with it. If you wanted the console, you got a DVD player with it.
And like, look, to be completely honest, as much of a disaster launch it was, the PlayStation 3 for a long time was still the cheapest Blu-ray player.
Yeah, and that's probably the thing that kept it afloat in some regards. It meant they could keep pushing through that generation and rebuild their goodwill.
It's why we bought one almost at launch. Like within 12 months of it coming out, it's why we bought one.
Yeah. So for me, I don't think that argument has held water for the last two generations, PS4/5 now. The reason being the proof is in the Xbox One pudding, where you can see that they were trying to go in as hard as they could on media, which at the time was streaming, and it completely backfired on them.
Except the Xbox One S and One X.
Then it was a 4K media player. You're right.
The cheapest one on the market. Again.
That didn't set the world on fire, because the whole world is moving away from physical media.
Yeah,
so
and
I don't
4K
think that's a massive driver for console sales anymore, and I don't think it ever will be again.
Not in this regard, no. But I think that it was. I think it was why I had no excitement for the PS4 Pro when it was announced. Right, it was because I was like, this isn't even a 4K Blu-ray player.
Yeah,
like I would have considered it for that. And I think honestly, maybe so would have a lot of people in that regard. Of like, look, if I can get a better PS4. And it also just does that better, right? It does that one extra thing.
I don't know any other person except you who owns a 4K Blu-ray.
Oh, I do. I know plenty.
Of course you do. You're the one person I know who owns 4K Blueys. Yeah, of course you know other people who own 4K Blu-rays.
We got a WhatsApp chat.
So I guess what I'm saying is there are reasons to be excited about the PlayStation 5 that aren't physical media based, but we haven't seen them come to fruit yet. The most excited I ever was for my PS4 after I bought it was when Uncharted 4 came out. And that was one of the most exciting, newest, like visually stunning, groundbreaking examples of what you could do with a modern console and what an exclusive developer could do when they knew the hardware could make the most out of it. We haven't had that moment yet. We had Rift Apart, we had Ratchet and Clank in the first 6 months of the console coming out, and that was great. That was PS5 exclusive, and they did the level loading stuff where it was like instant loading of other worlds. That was cool, but it was kind of it's not that like 2-3 years into the life cycle of a system kind of cool, where it's like, oh, this is what's next. That's what we haven't had yet, and that's what I think will really define what the PS5 will be, because for as much as people love Bloodborne, it's not like, oh, the PS4 like defining game Bloodborne. I feel like it's like Soulsborne defining game Bloodborne. Like Bloodborne became so popular, it kind of forsook its platform. It wasn't popular because of the platform, and the platform wasn't popular because of it. It kind of gained a slow cult following, and because so many people had PS4s, people got Bloodborne, and then people loved Bloodborne. But when it was like, oh, have you seen Uncharted 4? Like, have you seen the way Nathan Drake's skin moves?
Well, yeah,
and
but
the mud physics on the tires and
I think that's also
all
because
that.
Bloodborne is not a mainstream genre of game.
No, I know, but like I'm just trying to that was one of their biggest games in the first 2 years. They didn't really have much in the first couple of years.
There were only games in the first 2 years.
On the PS4, right?
Yeah.
And PS5 has had games, but it's been PS4 limited. So when we get a show-stopping PS5 game that isn't just The Last of Us re-released, I think we'll have something to really sit up and pay attention to if they nail it. That's what I want. I want them to do something with this hardware that we haven't been able to see anywhere else before. We haven't seen that yet.
You know what I really weirdly think they have to do? And
Tell me.
And I think it's partly because of what Microsoft are doing as well. But I think that for me to get really excited about the PlayStation 5, I think they need to allow PlayStation 3 emulation.
Yeah, that would help a lot. For the hardcore at least.
And imagine like a giant smattering of PlayStation 3 only games.
Yeah, like Resistance and Killzone.
Yeah, like, all of the Metal Gear Solid games, right? Like,
Yep.
like that would be a gigantic boon for them if they could get something like that.
Ico.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to set the world on fire, but yeah, it would be cool.
It would be great for their diehard PlayStation audience though, because there's no modern way to play Ico.
Imagine that you can play everything that we riffed off in the Astrobot fucking game that we packed in. It's just
here's the Astrobot pack. Here's Resident Evil 1 and 2.
Exactly.
Here's Final Fantasy, whatever. Yeah, that would go a long way. I don't think their business is really marketed towards that. I think we might get something like that in the future, like way down the line, but I don't think it's going to happen soon.
Yeah. I don't see them making this console like a one for the books.
Yeah.
I think that maybe the one after this could be a really huge thing.
You mean the PlayStation 6?
Yes.
Not like PS5 Pro, PlayStation 6.
Yeah, look, and there's stuff floating around that people have actually started to hear the words PlayStation 6 before they start to hear the words PlayStation 5 Pro. But
we have to consider the effect that all of the industry stock shortages and all of that had on the industry. Like, it's going to have a severe chilling effect on whatever patterns were being established in the previous generation.
And there might be a reason to say, hey, we can bring out the PlayStation 6 that is different enough for it to be its own number, but we can make these like 10 times the rate that we could the previous one.
Yeah, like maybe they just focus on making something that's a bit slimmer and cheaper. Maybe they just go for cheaper, more available hardware, so it's safer for them. They do that now so that the next generational leap is sort of in line with that half step they do. Yeah, maybe that happens. You're right.
We don't need the liquid metal anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't need to be $750.
Yeah, it can
be made up of half of it is just entirely a brick of metal.
We can
as for the heatsink.
we can make it fit in an IKEA Kallax now.
Yeah. The tech industry isn't moving that way when you look at computers.
When you look at a VR, it is. I saw a VR headset today that was fucking tiny and really incredible.
But then you look at the 40 series graphics cards and they're just getting more power hungry and larger. There's quadruple slot graphics cards right at the moment.
Kerry, let me tell you about a thing called MSI's 40 series laptops. That is.
No. You told me about that last week. All right, everyone. I think that's going to about do it for this week for PlayStation. You got any other final tidbits here, Jeremy?
Nah.
It's a weird spot. I don't really feel like we've got any solid conclusions here. We're just a lot of guessing, but they haven't given us much. It's going to be very interesting to see what their next 5 to 6 months are and what their next year is.
Yeah.
I hope we get something cool. I want my Uncharted 4 moment for the PS5. I want that moment of sitting there and sitting down and thinking, wow, this is the most beautiful game I've ever seen in my life.
Let me tell you about a game called Bloodborne.
We're gonna go to break, everyone, and Jeremy can tell me about it there because I've spoken about it too much on the show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the MiniMapCast. If you'll notice that last segment went a little long, bit longer than we intended it to go for. Potentially almost twice the length. No, not twice. More like 1.5 times the length that we aimed for that one to be.
Yeah.
It kind of happens every time we talk about PlayStation. We have a lot to say about PlayStation, which is funny.
Yeah.
So what that means for you, audience, is we're not going to be talking about Jeremy's exploits of Breath of the Wild. We're gonna cut that for this week. Long story short, he pulled the Master Sword, which he couldn't do last week. And so we're just going to be talking about 2 games, one each for the both of us for the week. Starting with me, I played a new game this week based on an old game, sequel to an old game, but it's in early access. But the old game isn't in early access, but this one is. It's Sons of the Forest. If you're not aware of what any of this is, The Forest was a survival game that came out in like 2018. In early access.
Wasn't it way earlier than that?
Maybe. Let's have a look.
I want to say,
a good point.
Like, I think that game is from like 2014 or 15.
Whoa, you're right. 2014.
Yeah, that game is like not young.
No, and it was. I'm pretty sure it came out into early access.
I also believe so. I played this game, I think, in early access.
Yeah. So following a 4-year-long early access beta phase, the game was released for Windows in April of 2018, PlayStation 4 in November 2018.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a survival game, right? You crash land on an island. You have to chop trees, get wood, build houses, make a stick, make an axe, make a spear, like find a flashlight. Kind of, but with a bit more realism to it in terms of like, it's not like Minecraft where you can like dig into the hill and then like use the dirt to make dirt blocks or whatever. The world is not procedurally generated. It is authored. And that's important because there are outposts of enemies, and these enemies are all cannibals. And they're quite scary and freaky and alarming.
Yeah.
They dress weirdly and they don't speak a language, and they'll fuck you up and steal you and take you to their camp. It's a whole thing. So the second one, Sons of the Forest, came out last week into early access. I never played the original, but I did see some gameplay of it. And I was invited to play it with some friends from work who were very, very familiar with the original game. And they're like, oh man, I'm really excited to go into a new one because we played the original so much there's like no point playing it anymore. Like they platinumed it, hundreds of hours into it. Like they knew that game backwards, back to front, inside and out. And so it was very interesting playing this game, rediscovering it with people who knew the previous one, but also just discovering for myself the first time. It's interesting because like a lot of the basic stuff that they had in the first game is there now in early access, but it means that a lot of some of the new stuff that they wanted it to be a part of this game isn't there yet. And some of the things that they changed from the first game to the second game aren't fully fleshed out. And so there are a lot of times I'm playing with these guys and they're saying, oh man, why isn't it like this? It was just like this in the previous game. It was so much easier. And there's a lot of ways of like building fences and stuff like that got a bit janky and weird. Like you could build fences as like piles of logs lengthways. So like lying flat and then you build a wall that way. And then you can like chop like a window into it or like tie ropes over it, which is neat. Or you could put them in vertically, so end on end. And they sort of snap together if you look down at the ground, and you can get them in a straight line, or you can move them off to the side to like bend the fence around, and then you can like chop the top off it to make it spiky. So that's something you can do. But if you want it to be spiky because that's better for defense because it's harder for them to climb over, the cannibals, but then you want a door in it, then you need to make it you need to take the vertical fence, which is spiky, and attach it to a horizontal part of the fence, which isn't spiky. and there's no way for it to do that. Like
Right.
there's no like vertical to horizontal snapping at all. So then you're doing this thing where you got to get it just close enough so they can't sneak through, and then like jam up the sides. But everything's quite good with the snapping. So then you have to find this like weird half hidden spot where the pixel's just right enough, where it's on just the right angle that it's close enough to block the gap. It's all very finicky in a lot of ways.
It sort of reminds me of the early, like when we first played Grounded when it first launched into its early access period. Like the base building in that, you know, it's early, it's in development, it's in early access. It's not the easiest thing in the world. A little bit finicky.
Yeah, totally. But they were excited about different things like this, like, oh, I'm building this staircase off the cliff to go down so we can, you know, go down the cliff without breaking our necks. And this is cool because I didn't have to build it out away from the cliff. I could build it into the cliff, which was a big deal. Apparently you couldn't touch like a rock face with your structures in the previous one, which made it a huge pain in the ass. There's also seasons in this game. So we went to sleep one night to like pass time because it's dark when it's nighttime in this game. It is pitch black. And then we woke up the next morning. It was like, whoa, snow! It's winter. And
it's fucking Stardew Valley ass fucking.
Yeah. And so that means there's less food around and like, you know, all of that seasons stuff. But yeah, this game's weird. It's a weird kind of mix of like cathartic base building and like survival, managing your food and managing your water, and then all of a sudden like it's bows and arrows and axes and chopping off cannibal limbs and putting them on a food rack to dry so you can use them as a food source, and like chopping off their heads and making a spike with it on it to like keep some of them away. And then then there's like mutants, and they're like, we called one a cat dog, which was like two torsos of a human sewed together at like the hips, but they don't have any legs. They've just got 2 arms each. So they're just like this like crawling thing.
There's an amazing memory I have, which I didn't remember until now. I have of the first game, which I'm wondering if they've replicated this, because I think it was actually genuinely really cool. Which was when you crash land on this island, a la Lost, you like look around and try and get some stuff together, and you build a little base and you build a fire and you start cooking some food and stuff. A couple or so nights in, when you first meet the locals, in the first forest game, they just watch you for a bit.
Yeah.
Do they do that in this, where like they will just see what you're doing from like a distance, and then will kind of get a little bit close, just like uncomfortably close. They will like hang out nearby, and you're like, are you? And if you attack them, they will attack you back. But if you don't,
but sometimes they run as well, I think.
Oh yeah, they will run around, but they won't necessarily.
No, but like if you attack them, they'll just run away.
Right. Do they still do that? Where like at the beginning they will just observe you?
It's a little hard to say because I came into the multiplayer world about an hour and a half in.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It is an early period where they do, and it's like, honestly, like there's a reason I still remember it, because it is so unnerving just having them just like learning what you're doing is what it feels like. Which is like, the heart.
Yeah, totally. It is pretty unnerving seeing them. I didn't have that same moment, but I wasn't on my own, and so a lot of time it was like, there's one by me. It's like, and then I walk over and they're like already dead or whatever. So like, you know, it's that kind of like classic, everything's different with people.
Yeah. You gonna play it on your own?
I might. We'll see.
Learn the progression.
It's kind of hard. It's kind of really hard. Like when you get hurt, you get like properly hurt. And if I can't just get picked back up again, like, I don't know, like it might be more punishing than I'm like that keen for. Yeah,
right. Like I feel like attacking early access games, you know, like they're not balanced, they're not put together yet. They're, you know, you're playing an in development build.
Yeah, it's pretty polished for early access. Like it's decent, and it has been in development for a while, but yeah, it just isn't finished.
Yeah, because they haven't made another game in between this and that. So like,
they haven't.
I'm curious, have they just been working on this?
They have, and it's been a while, and they're kind of like been stringing along. Like people have been like, "Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?" And so they put out a release date, and then it got to about a month ago or 6 weeks ago, and they were like, "Look, we're going to hit this date. We've been pushing it, but it's not going to be ready, guys." So we've decided that it hadn't been this. They decided last minute to make this an early access release. They wanted to do the full game.
Yikes!
It's not bad.
Sure.
It's the kind of thing where it's like they do have the minimum amount of like gameplay there to make it worth playing. But you know, it's the classic foibles of early access. Something that's interesting in this is there are NPCs. One of the people you crash land with in your helicopter, Kelvin, survives, but he's incredibly concussed, like brain damage concussed. But he hangs out, and what you can do is you can give him simple instructions on like a notepad. What it effectively means is you have a person there who will do what you ask him to, and that can be, hey, just clear out logs and bring them here, or go catch fish, or just sit here. You can do all these kinds of things. Like we had him set to clear out logs, and then we went on an adventure, and we came back, and half the forest was gone around our base. And it was like, Kelvin, you didn't stop. And so like that's kind of cool. And there's also like a mutated, like the daughter of the person that you came here to find finds you, and she's in this like leotard the whole time, and she has 3 legs and 3 arms.
Cool. Many logs to carry.
What?
Many logs you can carry.
Well, she doesn't do that. She's a bit skittish. She just kind of runs around.
Oh.
You can give her a gun apparently, and she'll walk up to you and give you a squirrel or like a blueberry. Like, here, look what I found.
Nice.
Like a cat with a rat.
Yeah, like a cat
at your front door.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It's lots of weird little things. I'll be playing more of it. I think I have to do some more for work. And it'll be interesting to see the boundaries on the early access content. You know what I mean? Like the bit where it gets to like, okay, we're not there yet. Or like, this feels a bit empty here, or, you know, all of that. We'll see what that's like. But so far, I had good fun. We went spelunking, went to a cave, got fucked up, but pulled through, and found a shark in a cave all on its own. And just, you know, just random moments. Printed a 3D sled, like a 3D printed sled.
Nice.
It's like a toboggan down snowy mountains. It's a weird, fun, strange time.
Yeah. I thought that when they announced another one, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
This will probably be weird, and yeah, good.
Yep. So, Jeremy.
So, Kerry.
Now for something completely different. Let's talk about The Last of Us.
I finished The Last of Us Part 1.
Hooray! On Grounded?
No, God, no. No, on like normal difficulty, I think.
Yeah.
On normal difficulty, but I made all like the drops, like all the loot and every item like abundant. Because I was like, look, I don't particularly want to struggle at any point during this. So
to be fair, on normal you kind of don't.
Yeah, like you don't, but I was like, and so I was kind of
you really didn't want to.
Yeah, but I was also like, I wonder what this will be like. So
I do like that they let you tweak that on your own. Like you can change the combat difficulty and the resource difficulty.
So I've been playing with my partner because we were going through the show, and for a while we were hitting like story parity with the show as we were going. But that wasn't for like we were trying to do that. That was just basically like our play times in any given moment was either shorter or longer depending on just what we were doing at the time.
Like the episode breaks kind of line up with like, this is a good place to stop.
Yeah. And then we just had a seedy Sunday after a party, and so we're like, let's just do the entire from Tommy's from the time you meet Tommy until the end of the game.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, it was like 4 hours.
Like all the way to the end of the game to the credits? Whoa.
Yeah, like it wasn't like it was pretty just like through line.
Yeah, I guess there's just a lot of intense moments in that, I guess.
Yeah, it's
picking up on.
Yeah, it's like you go to the school, then it's winter, and then you come out of winter and you do the like. It's actually.
Did you do Left Behind?
No, we haven't done Left Behind.
Okay.
I think because I actually want to watch that episode before we do that part of the game. Because I think because my partner Rebecca has not played the game or obviously finished the show yet because the show's not out. I think that, like they tend to more enjoy the show than the game just because it's it's not necessarily the show is made for people who are not playing a game right now, whereas the game is made for people who are playing a game right now. So that will come later. That will come today, basically.
Yeah, today. It's today's episode.
And then we'll go back and do that. But then after finishing part 1, I then went downstairs and I was like, do you want to play part 2? And they're like, yeah. And so I grabbed the disc and put it in the console and
strap in.
Yeah, and then like had a shower while it installed and stuff, and then just started up part 2.
Had a shower, went to the shops.
It's way faster on the PS5, thankfully. I think the disc can read a lot faster now, because I think it was only about 20 minutes or so. And yeah, so we started part 2. Before I briefly talk about the intro to part 2, after not touching it basically since I finished it way back when, I think I've almost made my peace with part 1 in terms of like, I think I'm sort of like done with it in a way. In terms of like the game itself, I think at this point I think I've told the story before and I don't remember what it was for, but like what I was comparing it to. But the last time I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey was years ago now in the IMAX theater. It was a sunny day. It was like it was like a Father's Day or something, and Dad and I watched it and went like, "Fuck, that movie is long."
And it was for like the 6th time or something, right? It was like the next time again.
Yeah, no, like I've seen that movie like maybe 8 or so times. But the most important thing is the last time I saw it was at the IMAX theater, and we both came out of it going like, we've sort of seen it the best way we possibly can. Like, what if we just put that to bed?
Yeah.
You've
gotten what you can get out of it, and it's time to move on.
Yeah, in a way. And I might watch that movie again in 10 years or so, and that's fine. But like for now, I've closed the book. Mm-hmm. And I feel almost similarly about part 1, where it's like, look, I've played it on PS5, looks great, runs the best it can run. The show is coming out at the exact same time. I'm gonna get another version of that ending in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And I'm like, it's kind of it. I think I don't want to play that game again for quite a long while.
That's fair. I'm feeling similar but different, because I played it when part 1 came out and beat it, so 4 months ago.
And like I didn't do that.
Yeah. So this is you doing that now.
Yes.
I'm watching the show. I'm doing capture of the game for work, but I'd also just recently started the New Game Plus file and was going through that before I had to do it for work. So and I do intend on doing that and getting the platinum once I'm done with the work for the show. So that's 3 playthroughs in less than 6 months of just part 1.
Are you feeling more burnt?
Plus a watch through of the show.
Yeah, are you feeling more burnt out on that story at the moment, maybe in terms of like, or are you just sort of like just coasting through?
I'm really enjoying it.
That many times at once?
I know, it's weird, right?
Yeah, it is weird. Like, I think like it's like maybe like a little bit incorrect.
No, I am. I wouldn't do it a 4th time. Like, I'm not raring to go again. But there's something. I'm gaining a deeper appreciation for this game. Like, I'm drilling through the surface level of my surface level enjoyment, I guess, of this game, and finding out why I like this one as much as I do. Which
is the exact same thing that I was doing this playthrough as well. Mm-hmm. Was I know this game like intimately.
Yeah, you know the beats.
No, like more than the beats. Like I know like the dialogue. Like I know the script, and I know I know the rooms and I know the direction of where I'm running in certain scenarios, right? Like the part where I'm running through the winter town, whatever the name of it is. I know.
I don't think it has a town, but in the blizzard.
It does have a name because I saw a sign and I was like, oh, I didn't know this town had a name, and I just moved on. Like that's the only reason I know. But like I'm running through that town and like I know the direction, and I know the game is designed in a way to put you in a leading direction to go.
But also you've done it before.
But also I took the shortest length possible to get through that town because I just knew the way to go. And yeah, like I feel the same where I'm like I'm getting through my this was the best game in the world for me back in 2013 when this came out on the PlayStation 3. And I was getting into games as a larger thing at this point. Like I think at that point,
more mature games and
yeah, and like a year or two after was when I started doing my first game design, like anything back when I was doing a Cert 2 and a Cert 3, and there was a level of like I would love to make a game like The Last of Us when I grew up, and then then we went into game design school and we talked about it, and there was Uncharted came out and all that stuff, blah 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 blah. Basically, I think now
here we are
making games like The Last of Us. No, I think now I am getting through my like I loved this game. Like this was a formative game for my literacy in games at the time. And now I am critiquing it as someone who understands a lot more about the medium and the art form than I ever did back then.
Yeah. And
so I could see a lot of I've taken that step back and I'm looking at with a more critical eye in a way. And also my opinion on Naughty Dog games has changed dramatically over the past like 10 years anyway. But like this is the most motherfucking 2013 video game that has ever existed and ever will existed. Like, and like, that's not a bad thing, but like this game is a 2013 video game
it's got the combat section, looting section, puzzle section, combat section, cutscene, puzzle section.
And the joke is right that, look, we're walking into a room with chest high walls, blah, 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 blah. And like that's not even the stuff I'm talking about. Like I'm talking about like character dialogue and interaction. I'm talking about like specific.
It was great for the time, but yeah,
of course. Specific animations, specific style of animating. It's because they were doing performance capture and motion capture back then as well, but. It was
just on the PS3.
Yeah, like it's still PS3 animations that they have gone back and retouched up. But at the end of the day, like the basic movement style is a 2013 style of game animation, which is a weird thing to consider as an era.
Like it's a subgenre, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of the story stuff that I think doesn't land nearly as well as. Or maybe now I'm just more critical of it, or if I had maybe a more trained eye back then, I would have considered that I didn't quite like this section as much.
You also have a direct comparison with a retelling of the same plot through the show, through a different medium.
No, like this is stuff that hasn't come up yet. Like the David section, for example. I think all of that section I actually don't think is really that good. I think the opening part of him where you don't know whether you trust him or not, and there's that moment of like
you have to trust him, and
like you have a combat section with him. The moment that David's character intentions become are revealed to you, I think it is not good. I don't think it serves the story. I don't think it serves the characters. I don't think it serves the world. And I remember thinking about this when they announced a new one, when they announced the part 1, when they announced this remake. I was like, I wonder when we had this conversation about if they were going to change anything, if they were going to leave everything as is, and we found out that they changed very minor things, and we're not too sure why they changed certain things, like Tess holding a gun out or not. There was some weird like, why did you like?
Yeah, you had a thing about his height.
Yeah, like the Joel's build changed, and I can see that now looking at part 2 immediately. I'm like, oh, it's like a little bit different. It's slightly different, but because it's way closer to the part 2 Joel as a face. But I remember thinking like, oh, well, if they're selling it at a full price, maybe they should edit this game.
Yeah.
Because like that was my other thing, is like, are they going to, are they not going to? Maybe, I'm not sure. But like, should they? And I think they should have. And I know that would have upset people, and I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. Be mad, nerds. Because like when you edit it to make it better, it's a better thing. And I'm not talking about like, I'm not talking about George Lucas, you know, put some animation dudes in the front of the camera, or, you know, McClunky.
McClunky.
I'm talking about like, this game is a game that came out in 2013. That was 10 years ago. Like, we've changed in 10 years. Some stuff, it was edgy back then. Now it's just kind of weird and gross. Maybe it would have been a better game without it. I also think that would have shown tremendous, like, boldness to say, actually, we don't really like this part of the game.
Yeah.
Anymore.
That is not why they were remaking it.
No.
They were not remaking it to redesign it or redefine it or do more work on it. They were doing it because the original was strong enough that it could sell plenty if it looked better on the new system when the new series came out that it is based on.
Yeah.
Like, that's what Naughty Dog was doing. That's what Sony wanted. That's what PlayStation wanted.
I think it's a missed opportunity. I think it could have been like, what if we made the ultimate version of this story, right?
Refined.
Yeah, like, I don't know how they're going to handle the David stuff in the show, and I'm really not looking forward to that episode. Like genuinely, I'm like, I think this episode's going to be kind of gross and a bit weird. They've already had weird, like...
They have had weird stuff in there that was not really that necessary or anything. Yeah, no, you're right. It could go bad.
Yeah, and like, realistically, I don't trust the showrunners of the show. I don't trust what they've said in interviews after the show when speaking about criticism of their weird consent stuff in the previous episodes. Therefore, I am not looking forward to this episode. Yeah. So yeah, like, I think that there is a better version of that game that could have been done, which is it's a shame they didn't do that. The game itself is still quite good, but I think I am done with it.
Sure.
Yeah, which is interesting to consider. Like, I think I've come to my own personal conclusion with that game of like, yeah, it's a good game from 2013.
Yep. You have gotten what you've gotten out of it.
That did not need to be $125 on the PlayStation 5.
$125. I mean, even yep, you're right.
Six of those will get you a PlayStation VR 2, my boy.
Back in my day, when we bought The Last of Us Part 1, we only needed to pay $125 for it. Implication being it's like $300 in the future and they're still selling it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my takeaway for the game with all of my playthroughs of it and drilling through the surface levels I was saying before is different to that. I'm not coming to a point of like I'm done with it. But I'm gonna save that for now. It's part of my long everlasting sometime in the future Last of Us project. Uh-huh. So look forward to that. Why are you laughing, Jeremy?
I couldn't tell you.
Couldn't tell you. Just the weather.
Yeah, it's just one of those things.
So everyone, that's it for this week's show. I am quickly going to find, because we did find out what it is. I'm going to quickly find what next week's episode is going to be. Yes, got it. Okay, cool. I'm going to do the outro now, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the whole thing. This is a good, very PlayStation-centric episode. We're going to go now. But before we do, just know that you can go to minimap.com.au to find this podcast, all of our other podcasts, every episode of this podcast, and everything else we do on Minimap. Like, for example, the latest article which was published, which was the MSI, Jeremy's write-up about the MSI event he went to last week that he spoke about on last week's podcast, or 2 weeks ago now, that he went to.
I think I called it Colorful Hardware is what I ended up calling that article.
Colorful Hardware, right.
I'll be honest, Kerry, when I sent that to you for edit on Thursday evening to publish on Friday morning, I woke up late and forgot. And then I went through the weekend and I got to last night. I'm like, oh, fuck. I have that just sitting as a draft in the website. And so I quickly threw it together and I'm like, I need a name. Well, it's like 1 a.m. Colorful Hardware will do.
Nice.
And publish.
Publish. So you can all find that right now. It's live on the website. Go there, read it, see what you think about it. Tell us what you think about it on the social media accounts. The Minimap account is at MiniMapAU on all of the places I mentioned at the start of the show. We're on social media too. Twitter primarily. Jeremy, where can they find you on Twitter?
At Obi1Jez.
You can find me on Twitter at KJPalmer_24. And yeah, for those of you that are live with us on Twitch, stick around. We're going to start the post show. We're going to be looking at our topics of the show for the coming weeks after next week. So we're going to figure out the order of them. And, you know, if you have any topic ideas, you can throw them out there to us. And if you've got any ideas on what we should do next, then you'll have the opportunity to do that there. And yes, for those of you listening later, not live, make sure to give the show a positive rating wherever you're listening to us. It helps the show out a lot. It takes just a couple of seconds. And consider joining us next week for the live show if you can. It's a great time. Lastly, if you wanted to support us financially, you could do that on Patreon to help keep the mics and lights on. That's over on patreon.com/MiniMapAU. And for $5 Australian, you'll get 24 hours of early access for all episodes of the MiniMapCast, as well as some more benefits, all while helping us out greatly. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to this longer episode. We'll be back next week. See you then.